In a world where the unauthorized creation of life defies the rules set by the heavens and brings calamity to entire nations unmeritedly stained by sin, what sort of materialized proof of a missing young woman is permitted to exist? In a world where seemingly too many important events happen to have been said 500 years ago, what meaning does yet another loss take, despite being swallowed by the water's depths and disappearing among the masses? In a world that punishes life for daring to seek what truth lies beyond what's hidden, for that very truth is the foundation of what keeps the world afloat, what is the price to pay for knowing too much by the standards of the heavens and too little by the sea's endless void? The moon-blessed borderlands of Teyvat listen to tales preserved with ink and songs echoed through its aisles. For a land that draws inspiration from the Baltic Sea, Nod Krai's newly released playlist by Hoyoverse has a very interesting soundtrack, the title of which immediately catches your eye. La Preuve du Mademoiselle ou les balles de la Numerologie. As I and many other players have suspected for a very long time, these songs seem to embody the story of the Marionette, seventh of the Fatui Harbingers. It all started with a mere glance at Sandrone's design. She just looked too Fontanian. Harbingers not all originating from Snezhnaya was not really surprising. We had Mondstadt's La Signora, Inazuma's Scaramouche, Sumer's Dottore, and even some subtle Conrians among the lot. As mentioned, Nod Krai is a region primarily inspired by Northeastern European culture, so it was kind of odd to see a French song in Hoyomix's playlist. We can easily tie it to Sandrone, but what does it actually mean? The proof of a young woman or the numerology ball? We can take three important keywords split by this title, focus on the three parts each corresponding to proof, numerology, and the French aspect, which we will codename ball. Each one of these aspects indicates that the song is tied to Sandrone, which I will break down very soon, but not only her. There is another historical figure of the French region of Fontaine that strongly resembles what hides behind the mask of the Fatui's marionette. Like the other Fatui Harbingers, Sandrone's name is taken from one of the characters in Commedia dell'arte, a Roman-Italian theater among the first ones in Europe. The Commedia was important in the history of the periods and styles of theater, as it used characters wearing masks that came to be the archetypes for most kinds of characters that exist in theater today. They were defined by their specific personalities, outfits, and functions to the plot and portrayal in society. In the Commedia, Sandrone and Polonia were a couple that was represented by puppets, and Genshin Impact made the interesting choice of introducing the two together as well, albeit our Sandrone being the woman and the puppet Polonia seemingly the masculine figure instead. The other interesting thing is that both Sandrone and Polonia seem to be synthetic beings in the forms of robots, or puppets as well. What is interesting about Sandrone is her codename being the Marionette, which is a type of puppet but one that has strings attached to its limb and is being controlled by an unknown figure above. This is also reflected in her constellation. In French, marionette means Little Mary. Before we interacted with her directly, what we knew of Sandrone was how she was described as someone with a terrible personality. The seemingly sadistic creator of the Catherines that is often far too engrossed in her own research to even care about the death of her co-worker. I mean, she sent off a subordinate on a mission in Fontaine, and when he failed his task, she broke his mind, cut his tongue off to replace it with an apology note, then left him tied up nice and ready to be arrested in front of the Opera Picles. Without spoiling anything crucial, during the Nod Krai conquests, we were finally introduced to her face-to-face and got to learn much more about her. She often talks about herself using modules that she can manipulate at will, such as politeness or humor that she is able to turn on and off or change the parameters of. She is also capable of altering her trusted companion and weapon Polonia, using knowledge she carefully studies for and researches about. Yet despite her appearing cruel and irrational at times, she seems to be holding worries and sadness in her heart about certain matters. But for more of that, I encourage you to check the Archon quests out for yourself, if you haven't already. Little Mary being implied in the Marionette's title might just be another clever wordplay by Hoyoverse. Since you clicked on this video, you might have a feeling about a theory we will be discussing here. After learning the story of the Narzissenkreuz Institute and the events relating to it, and as Sandrone's design revealed, many were suspecting that its Mary-Ann Guillotin was, or was related to, Sandrone, as the two share practically the same appearance. If you don't know who Mary-Ann was, or if you need her story refreshed, I will take a deep breath and tell you the details. Grab a snack and some water, please. There's a bunch of names incoming, but I'll try to keep it short. Kind of like the House of the Heart, the Narzissenkreuz Institute was a Fontanian organization where orphans and children of criminals were raised. It was directed by a gentle-natured Oceanid named Lyris, who stepped up on the position in honor of the first Hydroarch on Nigeria. She was very affectionate and caring towards the children, who spent most of their time there playing characters of fairy tales and having tea parties. Narzissenkreuz, meaning Narzissenkreuz, can be a reference to the daffodil flower, but more likely to the beautiful hunter in Boeotia who fell in love with a reflection of himself in the water. That is where the term narcissism originates from. I believe this is tied to the pride of some Fontanian figures and their dissolving upon getting in contact with the primordial water, but that's a story for another day. 500 years ago, among the last generation of the children of the Institute before its fall was none other than Mary-Ann, along with Alain, a genius inventor-to-be, René, a culinary and technology researcher-to-be, and Jacob, whom let's just call a primordial seawater researcher-to-be for now. The four were close friends during their time in the orphanage, but ultimately went through complicated conflicts and separations later on as they grew up. Mary-Ann and Alain were adopted by Mademoiselle Guillotin, a former Mademoiselle hunter who was also part of the previous generation of the orphanage, and treated them well. While René and Jacob were adopted by Carl Ingold, and needless to say, things were not going well. Mary-Ann eventually also joined the Mademoiselle Phantom, while the other three joined the Institute of Natural Philosophy. While Mary-Ann was not particularly interested in their research, she would often visit them as the four were close and wanted to keep their friendship alive. Regardless, she would assist her brother on his research whenever his personal assistant Carter was struggling with health issues, likely old age and Elazar, possibly implying that her interest in research ended up organically growing later on. She was described as cheerful and personable, often acting like the older sister to them, despite being the youngest of the group, which greatly upsets me when I think about it and what happened to her next. As she was now a Mademoiselle Phantom member, Alain built her a mechanical robot puppy called Seymour to protect and assist her with duties and be by her side. Eventually, René and Jacob joined the dark side and attempted to use abyssal power and the illuminates remains to attempt and save Carter, but ultimately failing the experiment horribly and making Alain sever the ties between them. Think of the illuminates as another During. He was an abyssal creature awakened likely by Rhine-Daughter, who caused great destruction despite thinking he was leisurely exploring the world around him. This realization greatly upset him and he chose to perish, having his remains become land and also create the Melusines. After the incident, Alain went on to join the Mademoiselle Hunters as well, and both the siblings went on a mission against the big threat of Fontaine. Mary-Ann went to fight against the threat in the Illuminates remains, an orchestrated battle against the criminal secret society established by none other than René and Jacob. While the latter did not wish to fight against the Guillotin siblings, he ultimately caused an explosion within the remains, damaging Seymour and fatally injuring Mary-Ann. Likely now dead, her consciousness and will was absorbed by the Oceanid Lyris, and the rest gets a bit more complicated, so I will leave it here. While most remains unknown, you can imagine what Alain went through upon returning from his own side of victory to finding out his sister was dead. He abandoned all he had and founded the Fontaine Research Institute of Kinetic Energy Engineering, spending the rest of his days isolated in his research. It is logical to claim that he was deeply pained by grief and loss, and he even ensured to destroy the remains of his last research. However, one thing that is known is that in his workshop there was physical proof of something being built before he passed. The Proof of a Young Woman, or the Numerology Ball. That is the title's English translation of the Fontanian theme for Two Harbinger soundtrack for Sandrone and Polonia's entrance in the battle against Rerir. Let's focus on the first part of the title one more time. What does Proof of a Young Woman mean exactly? Well, if there is physical proof that Alain created one last machine before passing away, we can construct a very simple theory that explains why Sandrone and Mary-Ann look so much alike. Grieving the loss of his sister and utilizing his engineering genius, what if Alain created one final synthetic robot or mechanical puppet to recreate the image of Mary-Ann? Whether it was grief that pushed him to see his unfairly murdered sister once again, or his need to have an assistant for his research as he grew older and weaker, it definitely makes sense to me if he needed a robot-made assistant like Inefa to take care of him and his creations, just like his sister once used to as well. Whether this is odd or unreasonable matters little, as grief can make the human mind collapse and only focus on one thing to blindly keep it going. After all, Sandrone is for sure not human. She might have taken her love for research based on Alain's behavior, or that is simply the way she was programmed and built for. She might also have had a hand in making sure to leave no proof left of his last research papers that were confirmed to be destroyed. Yet it is undeniable that she herself is the living proof of Mary-Ann's existence 500 years ago. Editor wishes here. I just want to let you guys know I wrote this script shortly after Hoyoverse released the Nod Krai discs, which was before Act 3 and 4 of the Archon Quests released. I will still stick to my old script and leave the audio of this video spoiler free, but at this point if you know, you know. Spoilers of Nod Krai's Luna 2 Archon Quest will appear on screen right now. I recommend pausing to read so I don't leave the silence on for too long. If you do not wish to read them, please tab out now and wait until the audio resumes. The first part of the title is rather straightforward, but what does the numerology ball imply exactly? Let's split this into two concepts. Ball in this context likely refers to the formal dancing parties in France in the 12th century. Looking at Sandrone's design, I would point out 5 things here in an attempt to make a connection to this term, Sandrone and Mary-Ann herself. Straightforwardly, Sandrone's design looks Fontanian, which matches the origins of Mary-Ann and the potential inspiration of Alain's design upon creating her. You could make an argument Sandrone's dress and color scheme has taken inspiration from the ballroom French fashion during the Renaissance period, namely the puffy dress, layers, and heels. However, I would make a stronger point that her outfit seems closer to a typical maid outfit, which would align with Alain's purpose of creating a robo-maid assistant if that were the case. Sandrone's white lace bonnet, long dress, and apron resembled Polonia's dress, Sandrone's wife in the Commedia dell'arte. Sandrone's haircut strongly resembles a French cut literally called Guillotin, which is Mary-Ann's last name. Also, I'm probably just going crazy here, but I swear when I first glanced at Sandrone's back, it felt like I saw the shape of Fossolor's guillotine sword, at the white part connected to her ribbons. Back at the title. Numerology is the belief of an existing divine relationship between numbers and events. It is also the study of the numerical value of the letters in words and names, using an alphanumeric system. If we take the name Bal from Le Bal de la Numerologie and switch it to its feminine version Bala, this is what we get. Bala is a name that means young girl, represented by vigor and strength in youth. The interesting thing here is that Mary-Ann died young, hence a young girl. The vigor and strength can be found in her position as a Mademoiselle hunter, willing to head into battle, but unfortunately never getting the chance to grow older. This image of a young girl living on and preserving her vigor and strength in youth might as well be Sandrone, the puppet stuck in its youthful form as it cannot grow up like humans can. Additionally, in numerology, Bala is closely tied to the number 7. The number 7 is often associated with intellect, introspection, and wisdom. It is considered the number of the seeker, one who is drawn to acquiring knowledge and diving into deeper truths. This cannot be a coincidence when we are talking about the 7th of the Fatui Harbingers, and this is why. Knowledge is the true pillar of the world. These are Sandrone's words in the Archon Quest, as expected from a Harbinger who locks herself away in isolation when it comes to her research. I believe that she used the knowledge of Alain's research to create Polonia, a companion, assistant, and a weapon to stay by her side like she might have with Alain. And to researchers, discovering the truth and acquiring more knowledge often becomes their sole life goal. However, based on so many events we have seen in Teyvat, we often see that diving into those deeper truths and possessing knowledge one shouldn't have in their hands often comes with a big price to pay. Yet for a puppet that is not truly alive and was fed this life mission by an external force, why not humor the sense of Fontanian justice and seek answers and punishment of the old friends who destroyed everything she had, or at least move forward with her brother's gift and do her part of building the pillars of Teyvat's world? Now you might be like, okay, so Sandrone is some random NPC that died 500 years ago. Why does this matter? Well, Mary-Ann was connected to a lot of things, whether directly in the story or metaphorically in Genshin's writing. She was one of the last children in the orphanage, one of the last Mademoiselle hunters, an absorbed Fontanian, someone whose consciousness lived on, someone who fell in the Elina's remains, someone who got recreated in a fairy tale world, someone built into a synthetic being, a part of a doomsday prophecy, a part of yet another catastrophe 500 years ago that resulted into another sunk land underwater, someone whose trusted companions abused abyssal energy, maybe someone part of yet another Teyvat cycle all along. And if this is all tied to one off-screen NPC, with events and allegories related to many characters we know today, and the biggest warnings of the story of Teyvat, what else does Genshin lore have in store that will make an even bigger impact in its entirety? After all, despite everything we have been through, the worst has yet to come. And that's all for me today. This took a while to make, so I hope you guys like it. Your discussion and theories are welcome in the comments. I read every single one and I love responding back. If you like this video, please consider supporting the channel. Engagement and subscribers help me a ton, as I am still a newer creator in the mercy of the algorithm. I really appreciate you being here. See you next time!